Hello everyone, I'm Stefanos, a PhD student at UCL, and today I will be presenting my literature review on the security culture of organizations that use industrial control systems. Again, apologies for the small delay. Just to give you a brief idea, I'm going to start with a brief introduction to industrial control systems before I move in a minor background on security culture. I'll then talk a little bit about the methodology of the review before I present findings and some gaps which we think are avenues for future research. To begin with, industrial control systems and more generally operational technology is used to operate critical infrastructure in industries like water, energy, transport, and is essential for our everyday lives. For the past 10 or 15 years, more or less, IT and OT have been continuously integrated, which provides a lot of benefits to the companies, like improved maintenance or data collection, but that also expands their attack surface. And what we found is that there's a lack of people-centered research for those organizations. ICS, like any other systems, are socio-technical, which include people, processes, and technology. And we think there's more space for research into the people side of things. Just to give you a brief idea of a couple of attacks where employees played a significant role, Stuxnet, perhaps the most famous attack in such a system, was proliferated into the system to remove our media. And about a year ago in Florida, some attackers managed to get access to a water treatment plant and change the levels of water supply. Fortunately, an operator detected and reversed those changes before any adverse events happened. But I guess that just goes to show that employees can play both a good or a bad role in an attack. A couple of more introductory slides. There's various differences between OT and IT. Traditionally, operational technology has had a life cycle of decades, whereas IT is usually replaced in a life cycle of 3 to 5 years. When talking about principles, in OT, most professionals talk about safety, reliability, and availability, whereas in IT, most people care about the CIA triad. And also for our purposes, OT has quite a variety of user roles, whereas a lot of research in IT is done on end users of those systems. So in a systematic review done last year on security culture, which I do, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I made the argument that SMEs have smaller budgets, have a lack of security expertise, and they might need custom-built approaches to culture. And we make a similar argument for organizations that use ICS, that due to the differences between OT and IT, there might need to be some tailoring in how they approach their security culture. And just a brief background on security culture, I guess the ultimate goal is to incorporate security in all behaviors and managerial processes. And this is the definition we used in our paper. Moving on into factors that affect security culture, we've just seen a presentation by Emilia with 29 such factors. Other reviews have identified 25, 19. And while there's many of them, I guess the most prominent are more or less management and leadership, security training, awareness, security communications, and policies. As such, we kind of looked into 3 different areas. First of all, we wanted to have a general view of what the scope and the level of maturity of the research is. We then looked at the constituents of security culture and how they've been examined in ICS context, such as perceptions, attitudes, etc. And then we looked at which factors affect the security culture and how do they align with the general literature. A narrative literature review was conducted with the following search terms. That resulted in only 17 results, so we kind of had to expand by adding specific sectors, splitting security culture into 2 terms, replacing culture with human factors to broaden the number of results. And we ended up with 407 papers. We applied the exclusion criteria listed there, mainly excluding papers that talked about critical infrastructure, but in sectors like finance we did not use operational technology. or works before 2010, as cybersecurity wasn't really a concern for such systems. All in all, we ended up with 12 papers. In terms of our finding, we found significant differences in perception. Well, I mean, not we are reporting what others have found, but for example, OT personnel had the biggest gaps between roles compared to IT and security. And even in between different OT roles, there have been some significant differences in perceptions, and that was reported by Greenwald. Overall, security was found to be an overhead. That safety, that features widely in the human factor research. It obviously clashes with employees' habits and daily tasks because it adds extra time or extra effort to conduct security checks or logins or what have you. But additionally, security technologies add additional overhead. For example, encryption, which we consider pretty normal in most IT systems, is not really favored in OT as it adds considerable overhead, and the availability of such systems is contested. In terms of sectors, we found that the nuclear sector is much more mature. In the past 20 years, they've released a couple of guidelines on security culture, which no other sector really has. And finally, we want to point out that these systems have a safety culture. They are safety critical. You can imagine what would happen if an incident happens in a power plant. So these organizations have been doing safety for quite a long time and are quite used to it. It's more developed and appreciated than security, but it sometimes clashes with security in terms of communications or employee perception. Like there are many examples of employees being tolerant or even positive towards safety actions, whereas when they were asked about their security attitudes, they were like, "We don't want to do this. This is an overhead. This is not for us," which is again a common finding in a lot of the usable security literature. In terms of the factors, we can report that they are in line with the general literature. These are the factors that we kind of found, but there's various other factors in the literature which we have not really been looked at yet. It's just we want to specifically point out that we think that if you're looking into the security culture of such organizations, the safety culture and the technology, the operational technology of such systems also needs to be taken in consideration, as they are quite ingrained in their overall organizational culture. A couple of gaps we found that can be avenues for future research. The field is relatively small. We've identified 12 papers, but it's also emerging with most papers published after 2017. There was limited collaboration with industry, which is sad, but as it could provide richer insights or improve the validity of some of the claims made. But as someone who's actively trying to reach out to those organizations, I can tell you that's pretty hard, as they're quite secretive about it. But I think the most important gap, and that's kind of quite relevant to this conference, is that there's a lack of work with the end users of those systems. The works we reviewed consider security practitioners, security managers, or even the owners of such organizations, but they didn't really interview or have any way of talking with users in how security affects them. And just to quote the NCSC, security that doesn't work for people doesn't really work. So we think there's plenty of space in looking into how the non-security personnel in such organizations use security. And just to conclude, we conducted a literature review on the security culture of ICS organizations. It's a small but emerging field. Various security perceptions were identified, especially between OT and IT or OT and security, which we think could be ameliorated if we want a stronger culture. And finally, with respect to the factors, they are more or less in line with the general literature, but we think safety culture and technology should be included in all future analysis. And that's about it. Thank you.